You don't have to be on every platform, and in fact, trying to be everywhere would be a fast way to burning out your team and diluting your content to the point that it no longer works. In this episode, we're going to look at making smarter, more deliberate decisions about where you publish your content and the types of content that you create. You're listening to the Content 10x podcast, where it's all about content repurposing. I'm Amy Woods, and I'm here to help you maximize your content and find smart ways to get your message in front of more of the right people, whilst also saving time. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Content 10x podcast. I'm your host, Amy Woods, and I'm delighted that you're joining me here today in the fifth part of our Content Strategy Series. Now, if I ask you the question, why is your content on the platforms that it is on, what would your answer be? Quite often I find that that answer is, well, that's where everyone else is posting their content, that's where our competitors are, or that's where we've always posted our content. Now, that isn't making decisions rooted in a content strategy. That's more about inertia. In this episode, we're going to be looking at value-based, evidence-based decisions on the platforms that you turn up on and the types of content that you share on those platforms. So, where your content should live, and also importantly, where it shouldn't as well. Now, I mentioned this is the fifth part of our content strategy series. In case you missed it, the first part of the series, that was all about what a content strategy is and why it should be important to you. Then I moved on to looking at connecting your content strategy to business goals and revenue. We then looked at competitor analysis and differentiation in your marketplace. And we also looked at core messaging and positioning. The links to the past episodes are all in the show notes. And as I mentioned today, this episode is all about channels and formats. Now, why do so many B2B marketing teams end up focusing their content on too many platforms that just results in them spreading themselves too thin? You certainly want to avoid this trap of being everywhere. It is not about being on every platform. That is not the recipe to success. So in your content strategy, a really important component is looking at where you are going to publish your content. And it's also not about embracing every content format as well. Yes, there are long form videos and short form videos and podcasts and white papers and reports and infographics and lots of formats, but it's not about embracing all of them too. You don't want to spread yourself too thinly on all the platforms, and you also don't want to get your head in a spin trying to embrace every different type of content format as well. You have to work out for your strategy what is right for you and what is right for your audience. Because focusing on 2 or 3 core platforms is going to be more effective than focusing on too many. So, as I said, we're going to be looking at what platforms you should be focusing your content on and the types of formats as well. And it also comes down as well to then having a strategy per platform. So here we're looking at your overall content strategy and making those key decisions. When you decide on the platforms and the channels that you're going to turn up on, you then need to develop that platform channel specific strategy as well. Before I get to the main topic, just to mention our B2B Content Operations Benchmark. It is a completely free self-assessment. It's a series of quick-fire questions. It shouldn't take any more than 4 minutes of your time. So why not hit pause now and take our B2B Content Operations Benchmark. It's at content10x.com/benchmark. And from there, you'll be able to get a personalized report. We cover content strategy and tech and team and capability. And then we share lots of useful insights and resources and actionable takeaways to help you get to where you want to be. So again, go and take our B2B Content Operations Benchmark, and the link is also in the show notes. Okay, so back to deciding, firstly, where are we going to publish our content? Where are we going to focus from a platform perspective? Now, this all starts with your audience. You need to understand your audience, and you need to understand where they are hanging out, particularly where are they hanging out online, because we want to meet them where they are at. We want to get our content to them. Now, from a social perspective, in a B2B world, the obvious channel is going to be LinkedIn. But where else are they as well? So are they into Reddit? There's all sorts of sub communities and niche content on Reddit. Are they following Substacks? Online, are they attending webinars? Are they listening to podcasts? Of course, they're probably looking at YouTube content being a large search engine. What events are they turning up to as well? So you really need to understand where your audience are because, as I mentioned earlier, we want to meet your audience where they are. And it's all about migrating them from the channels that they hang out on over to your owned channels. And we do need to think about that. We need to think about the owned and the borrowed channels. We want to really prioritize our own channels. So by that, we're talking about your website content, your blog, etc. We're talking about your email list and your email subscribers. This is all your own channels. And then when we talk about borrowed channels, so for example, the social media platforms, you can build an audience over on, for example, LinkedIn. But if there is one day a risk that LinkedIn gets closed down or your page goes or anything like that, that's going to be a high risk because you are putting all of your content and everything on that rented land. So it's great in order to get in front of your audience. And these are the places where your audience hang out. But you want to look at ways to migrate your audience from these borrowed channels over to your owned channels. And that is a really key part of your content strategy. And in terms of that migration from borrowed to owned channels, so for example, getting people from your LinkedIn content over to your blog and your website, it's not about sharing lots of links and link dumping in your content. I truly believe that it's all about sharing such valuable content that gets people really curious that they want to go over and find out more about you. And then you can share the signals that there are other places to go to find out more. And that's where you get them over to your own channel. So it's less about link dumping and it's more about sharing really, really valuable content and staying close to your core messaging. Now, what do you do if your audience are on a platform that you don't feel particularly confident creating content for? So you're doing your audience analysis and you're looking at the places that your audience hang out, and you find out that they are avid podcast listeners and they're also on Reddit. Now, you feel comfortable that you could go into the podcast world. You've got people within your organization that are charismatic and have lots to say and will be happy to jump on a mic and share thought leadership style content. But you're maybe not so familiar with Reddit and you're not exactly sure how you would create content for that platform and how you'd have an impact on that platform. So in that case, everything would point to leaning into where you are most comfortable. So I often find that when you are doing a platform analysis and working out where to lean into, it needs to be that sweet spot with where your audience are, where they hang out, and the types of content that they like, and what you feel comfortable creating. Because if you feel comfortable creating that content, it's going to likely be of a higher quality, and you're also going to be able to be consistent. Where you feel comfortable, you'll be more likely to be consistent. So get that sweet spot between where your audience are and where you feel comfortable creating content. Once you've chosen your channel, is that decision fixed or should you review it? Well, yes, you should review your channels. What worked on LinkedIn 6 months ago may not work today. So you always need to be reviewing your channels and you need to be thinking about how your audience shifts and changes in their behaviors and their preferences and also the types of content that they like. And you need to be thinking about algorithms as well. We don't create content for the algorithms, but there's no getting away that when they do change and shift, that can really affect the impact that our content can have. So think about your audience, think about algorithm changes, and always be aware. Now, you don't need to revisit your decision on the platforms that you are going to focus on constantly. I think you do need to lean in and you do need to get good and get consistent. But I would say that periodically you do need to do that review, and that can be platform specific and channel specific. I always say that a content strategy should have at least some kind of quarterly review of looking at key KPIs and seeing if you're on track with things. And I would say that do a quarterly review very much within that strategic review of your channels and look at the signals, see what's working, what's not working, and always make sure that you are evolving. Perhaps making bigger decisions in terms of whether you're going to stay or leave a channel, you might want to do not quite on a quarterly basis. Perhaps that would be more of an annual review. But the main point here is that the decisions you make on the channels are not going to be set in stone because things do change all the time. So do make sure that you are doing a review. So, when you've decided on the channels that you're going to create content for, you then need to be thinking about the content formats. In the same way that you shouldn't try and be everywhere, I also believe that you shouldn't try and create everything as well, every type of content format. You need to lean in and make particular decisions. And this needs to be platform specific as well. Now, I'd like to mention episode 347 of the Content 10x podcast. It was called Why Not All Content Works Everywhere, and that's a good thing. And that was all about intent. So go check that out. We'll put a link in the show notes. You can read the blog post or you can listen to the podcast episode. But that was about two angles of intent. Firstly, you want to consider the intent of your audience when they come to a particular platform or channel. Why are they there? What kind of content do they expect to see? So if they're going over to TikTok, they're probably going to be expecting light-hearted, fun content, not taking itself too seriously, and they're probably expecting to be entertained in some way. Whereas if they go over to LinkedIn, their intent there is probably to be educated, to read something insightful. They may have more of an open mind towards learning something new about their profession or their industry, and of course, just connect with other people as well, like-minded people. So people will be in a different mindset and a different frame of mind on the types of platforms that they go on. So when you create content for that platform, you need to think about that intent and you need to create content in a style that is in line with what they expect. So something that you create for LinkedIn, you're probably not going to create exactly the same content for TikTok because it's just not meeting people where they are at and their frame of mind when they go on that platform. And you also need to think about your intent as well. So it's not just about the audience and their intent on that platform, although that is obviously very significant. But what is your intent with that piece of content as well? What do you want people to do? What do you want them to think and feel? Do you want them to take some sort of action, to engage, to comment, to share? Do you want them to get in touch with you? Do you want to go and follow some further content? So think about that as well, the intent of your audience on the platform, and also what is your intent with that particular piece of content as well. And another important question here is, should you consider your customer journey? So when you're choosing your channels and your formats, you should be thinking about the journey that your audience goes on. The same person will have different wants and desires and expectations when it comes to the types of content that they would like to consume, just based on where they are in the journey. For example, if they're just at that awareness phase, then maybe it would be more thought leadership style content and industry news and that kind of content that would interest them. But then they move more to the consideration phase. They might want to look at things like case studies and webinars, get into a little bit more detail with you. And finally, when they're at the decision phase, well, that might be looking at customer stories and product demos and that kind of content. So when you're choosing your formats and your platforms, a key thing to consider is that customer, that buyer journey as well. And this is something that I covered in part 2 of the Content Strategy Series, which was all about how to connect your content strategy with your business goals and your audience. And this is also where repurposing comes in as well. And we've got a whole episode coming up on repurposing and distribution. But you can find smart ways and systems to repurpose your content so that you are creating content for different stages of the funnel. You're basically doing more with less, leaning into a particular type of content for that stage in the buyer journey, and then repurposing it in slightly different ways to suit the other stages of the journey that your customers are going to be going on with you. Another really important question is, how many platforms should you focus on? Now, obviously, there is no right or wrong answer here, but I would say that focusing on 2 or 3 core platforms may be all you need to have a really effective B2B content strategy, which will allow you to create platform specific content because you're not creating for too many platforms. You can really understand those platforms and create platform specific content with intent. And then it can also help you to be really consistent as well and develop a really good cadence on 2 to 3 core platforms. So when you're deciding on the platform, ask yourself, can I commit to this? Can I be consistent? And can I sign up to a regular cadence on this platform to allow me to really hone in on the core messaging and positioning and just be there for my audience on a regular basis with the kind of content that is going to resonate and connect with them? Another really key question that I get asked all the time is, how do I audit the channels that I'm already on? So when trying to decide what channels you should be focusing on, it completely makes sense to look at where you are now and do an audit and see if you think that is working. For each channel, I would recommend to ask 3 key questions. Number 1, are my audience definitely on this platform, and not just on this platform, but seeing my content? So can you see the right type of audience engaging with the content that you're creating? Then number 2, am I creating platform specific content? So I'm not just cross posting or following a one size fits all approach with my content, but I am actually creating content that is platform specific and that my audience on that platform are seeing the kind of content that they expect to see when they are on that platform. And number 3, can I point to business outcomes that are coming from being on this channel and the content that we are creating? So moving beyond engagement and checking that it is the right audience that's engaging with your content, but are we seeing something further? Are we seeing leads? Are we seeing conversions? Are we seeing followers on that platform engaging with us in a way that's going to drive business outcomes? In part 2 of the content strategy series, we talked all about linking your content strategy to your business outcomes. So if you're going through this series and following along, you'll have some KPIs for what those business outcomes are. And you need to make sure that you have some of those at that platform specific level so you can see that it is having a positive impact on your business and what you want to achieve. Now, if a channel fails on all 3 of those tests, it could be a sign to either lean in further. So maybe you just need to get more platform specific and you need to make sure that you are tying that content to business goals. So lean in and do more, or it could be a sign to step back completely and come off that platform. And stepping back, by the way, that is okay. That's a strategic decision because you only have so much time and effort and resources to put into certain channels. So if some aren't working, stepping back could be the right decision. From my perspective, having a presence on a platform, but it being ineffective and dormant is actually not the best approach versus just not having a presence on that platform at all. And in fact, your audience will find you in the places that you do lean into, and there they will see consistent content aligned to your core messaging and positioning, and they'll know exactly what you're all about. It's all about focusing your energy on where it's going to bring benefits and compound over time. So doing a fantastic job on 2 platforms is going to be better than spreading yourself thinly on 5 or 6 platforms. So I hope you found this episode really useful and it's maybe helped you think a little bit more about the channels that you focus on and the types of content formats as well. To think a little bit more strategically and also always be thinking about that keyword again, intent. So the intent of your audience on the different platforms and the intent of your content. Be sure to align with the journey that your customers are on, and do make sure to lean into repurposing as well when doing so. You can repurpose content for different stages of your customer journey. Okay, so again, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's part 5 of our strategy series. We've covered content strategy and what it's all about and why. We've looked at alignment with business goals. We've looked at competitor analysis, messaging and positioning. Today, we've looked at the channels and formats. In the next part of our content strategy series, we're going to be looking at one of my favorite topics, which is the repurposing and distribution of your content. So links will be in the show notes, and follow along either on the podcast apps, our website, or on our YouTube channel. Now, before we go, just to mention again, our B2B Content Operations Benchmark. It's a free self-assessment, quick-fire questions, and you will get a personalised report that will help you with your content strategy, also your tech and operations, and team capability and culture as well. Just head to content10x.com/benchmark and go check that out. And if you would like any help with your content at all, from creation to repurposing to content strategy, we are here to help here at Content 10x. So just head to content10x.com/inquiry and we'd love to chat with you. Okay, all that's left to say is thank you for joining me in this episode, and I will catch you in the next one.